Hello, hello, damn nation. I hope that you all are doing well because my God, the last, I don't know, few days, few hours have been absolute hot trash in these United States. Once again, I am traveling. I'm trying out new internet. I hope that it's working. I hope that things go smoothly for this show today because I got a lot to unpack and a lot of shit to say. So, without further ado, dear friends, let's get into it. Welcome to the Danielle Moodie Show. I'm so glad that you're here. Hello, hello, damnation, and welcome to the Danielle Moodie Show. This week and a part of next week, I am going live at 2 p.m. Eastern as opposed to 5 p.m. Eastern because I am traveling. I appreciate so much all of you that have been giving me grace and watching the videos. I put up a video yesterday to break down the Monroe Doctrine and the new Dawn Doctrine that Donald Trump is now rolling out. Apparently, the new age of American imperialism is where we are, where the United States speaks loudly, incoherently, and also carries a big stick. Donald Trump is a fan of war, and that's what he is ushering us into. And it is extraordinary. It is extraordinary. The last few hours have been wild. So, just to catch people up, okay. Nicolás Maduro has been kidnapped by Donald Trump and his regime alongside of his wife. Donald Trump put together a large-scale Okay. Okay, I'm back. It froze. I'm back. Okay, bear with me. So you guys tell me that you are still, is she still frozen? Oops, I'm frozen. Am I back? Tell me because I see myself. I'm waiting. If not, we're going to try. Okay, but good. All right. So here we are. Okay, so Maduro is captured. He is now paraded back into New York City. He's being paraded around New York City, right? As if like you've killed a lion, right? Like his children love to do. And then they parade folks around. They parade around the head as their trophy hunt. Well, that's what Donald Trump is doing with Nicolás Maduro being in New York City right now. And he stood before a judge today and said, I've been kidnapped from my country and I'm here against my will. Okay. And so that's where things stand. And what's funny, why I have this picture up, is that it is reportedly just how small and simple and stupid is this president of the United States? Well, reportedly, Trump's team reportedly grew so annoyed by Venezuelan leader Nicolás Maduro's public dancing that they took it as mockery and decided to act. After Maduro ignored a U.S. ultimatum and kept brushing off threats and literally dancing on state TV, the White House officials reportedly pushed ahead with military action, ultimately leading to Maduro's capture. So they kidnapped this man and his wife, bringing them to the United States to stand trial because you didn't like that he was dancing on television? What in the colonization, what in the slaveholder type of bullshit is this? Okay. And the fact that this is being reported makes you understand that it's true, right? Like, of course, because it sounds exactly like Donald Trump because he's petty, he's small, and he's stupid, right? And so this is where we are, where this is the reasoning. Because you have to understand, folks, that unlike, right, unlike, let's say, the war in Iraq, which Bush got us into, lying about weapons of mass destruction, wasn't held accountable for that. But unlike that war, which was sanctioned by Congress so that Bush and Dick Cheney weren't just out there on a limb by themselves, no, 99% of Congress backed them and their weapons of mass destruction lie, which led to massive instability in Iraq, massive loss of lives, massive loss of money, right? Like, those were the things that happened because of this war. But unlike that, Donald Trump didn't alert Congress to what he was doing in Venezuela. No. Word on the street is, though, he did pick up the phone and let the folks at Chevron and Exxon and the other oil tycoons know what was happening. And I got to tell you this, right? Because this shit is wild to me. And Waj and I talked about it today on our Democracy-ish Live that we did on Substack. Because again, I'm having internet issues. So sometimes it's easier to go live on Substack. But nonetheless, Waj said Donald Trump in one of his, like just, I don't know, diatribes, just dementia delusions that he went on, basically said, oh, yeah. Have you contacted the oil companies? Oh, yeah, we contacted them before the invasion, before the operation, and we contacted them after. Do you all not remember Secretary of State Marco Rubio 2 days ago standing before the American people saying that this was a law enforcement operation and they didn't have time to alert Congress because they had to act so quickly? So Donald Trump had time to contact the boys and the CEOs over at the oil companies and let them know what was going on, what was going down. But he didn't have time to contact Congress to get the A-OK. Oh, and just to mention, who are some of the backers of the monstrosity that they're calling the ballroom that is going up in next to the White House? The oil companies. So who does this seizure, this invasion seem like a kickback for? Everybody say it with me. The oil companies. Yeah, that's about right. So I found this post interesting. This is Robert A. Pape, and Robert A. Pape is a political science professor over at Chicago University, and he runs a really interesting institute there that looks at security around the world. And this is what he posted yesterday with a map of Venezuela. He said, Venezuela is primed for resistance to U.S. controlling the oil. Perfect terrain for insurgency. Plenty of armed groups already. Far worse than Iraq. Chaos is coming. Because here's the thing. While Donald Trump doesn't want to name, right, Maria Machado as the rightful president of Venezuela, the one that was actually elected, but then Maduro stole the election. Does this all sound familiar? Like maybe you have heard this before. So he doesn't want Machado to run the country. And why doesn't he want Maria Machado, who the people of Venezuela overwhelmingly voted for, and the United States recognizes her official win, but Maduro and his military decided that they weren't going to let go of power, so they just tossed her to the side? Donald Trump doesn't want Machado to run the country because he wanted her to give up the Nobel Peace Prize, to refuse the Nobel Peace Prize, and then give it to Donald Trump. It wasn't enough that for whatever reason, I couldn't understand why she was fawning over Donald Trump and just throwing favor his way. And, oh, he's so amazing and he should get the Nobel Peace Prize next and all of this shit. She did all of that for no fucking reason, because guess what? He still ain't going to appoint you. He's still not going to seat you. And even though your own people want you, he doesn't want you. Why? Because you won a prize that he wanted. And he still is bitching about the Nobel Peace Prize while he's murdered 80 people in Venezuela from this attack, and that's not including the fishermen that he's been bombing. You can't make this shit up. You can't make it up. It's obscene. But the fact is that Donald Trump thinks that he has now taken over Venezuela. He's now going to run Venezuela, even though Marco Rubio had to walk back those statements that Donald Trump made when asked by reporters. So now that you've removed Maduro and he's in standing trial in the United States, who is going to run Venezuela? And Donald Trump said, the people behind me, pointing to a fucking alleged alcoholic and sexual harasser, and Marco Rubio, who looks soulless and like he doesn't know where he is because half the time he's coked out of his mind now to numb the pain of being, the arbiter of Donald Trump's chaos. So folks, he can't run the Kennedy Center, but now he's going to try and fail and run two countries. When I tell you that we are headed towards disaster, not even I could have foreseen so quickly, right? It's wild. But here is Robert Pape back in October, where he wrote for Foreign Affairs magazine, America's New Age of Political Violence. And what he was talking about in this piece, right, is the fact that America's violence has escalated over the last 10 years. Now, while I disagree with Professor Pape at the fact that he says, and he has data behind him that says that there is a rise on both the right and the left in terms of political violence, we all know who has been stoking the flames. We all know what happens when this country enters into unnecessary wars, spending our taxpayer dollars while the American people can't afford food or medicine or gas. Like, this is not going to bode well. And the violence that we have already seen is at a fucking fever pitch. So what he writes here is that violent populism, a phase of politics characterized by high levels of political violence and broad support for it, now represents a greater risk to American democracy than any competition with another country or any menace by a foreign terrorist group. The United States democratic foundations have, of course, been threatened by political violence in the past. During the 1920s, for instance, the Ku Klux Klan and nativists carried out terror campaigns against Black people, Catholics, and immigrants. In the 60s and 70s, urban riots and political assassinations were a more regular feature of American life. But he writes this: there was a clear turning point in the nature and magnitude of the hazard. Every year, starting in 2017, prosecuted threats increased, folks, more than fivefold from the previous year. Between 2001 and 2016, Democrats appeared to be generally more at risk, except during the first Bush administration. Since 2016, however, the threats to Republican and Democratic members of Congress have been roughly equal. And like the Cato and CSIS starting in that year, CPOS, his Professor Pape's institute, studies show a marked rise in political violence on both the right and the left. By all crucial measures, the pattern is the same. Political violence has been rising over the past decade, and it's high on both the right and the left. Continuing to emphasize relatively small differences in the balance only contributes to a dangerous blame game that, will make matters worse. So here is the thing. We're already inflamed. Melissa Hortman and her husband and their dog were murdered. Governor Josh Shapiro's house was firebombed at the beginning of 2025. We've had judges' homes blown up. We've had terrorist attacks. You had the murder of Charlie Kirk, right? What do you think is going to happen now that Donald Trump is not only purposefully driving our economy into the ground, but he is also now initiating potentially a world war by not only is he threatening, right? Not only is he threatening other countries, but we know that this is nakedly about a quid pro quo. And this is what is said here in Raw Story. Trump's Venezuela attack was quid pro quo for massive ballroom donations. The building of the White House ballroom has been denounced as a corruption tumor on the White House grounds by attorney Norm Eisen, the legal expert who served as co-counsel for the House Judiciary Committee during the first impeachment trial of Trump, has warned the renovations made to the White House so far show just how far Trump is willing to appease oil companies and benefactors. Trump has claimed the ballroom is being funded by private donors, including oil companies. And Eisen suggested the attacks on Venezuela would be seen as a hand back to those oil barons. Speaking with Greg Sargent of the New Republic, Eisen suggested the ballroom is more symbolic than practical. He said, quote, "We should not be invading foreign countries to seize their oil. I mean, the guy is such an unsophisticated dictator. Trump is setting up a payback loop to the big oil companies. But then he's done quasi-official fundraising for his whims, like the ballroom that he's going to erect over the destroyed East Wing. That ballroom is like, remember how in the Popeye cartoon, Popeye would have one giant arm and the rest of him scrawny? That ballroom is symbolic. It's like a corruption tumor on the White House grounds." So do you see here that Donald Trump can't even use, right, the past ruse, let's be clear, that was used by other presidents and other administrations over multiple centuries for their meddling in Latin America. But now Donald Trump, with his naked imperialism, is just like, well, I don't have to pretend that this is about democracy or the people in Venezuela because he doesn't give a fuck about democracy here. This is a kickback. Donald Trump has got to pay back the people that paid for this election that got him back in office. And this is how he's doing it. It is a distraction from the Epstein files that were supposed to be released, total and complete wag the dog, and it is payback for the oil barons that funneled money into his campaign and funneled money into what I believe is a stolen election. So then they turn around and they say, oh, well, Maduro is corrupt. Yeah, so the fuck is Donald Trump. So much so, folks. And I really hope that this plays because this parody video, I have no idea who did this, but it is a parody video that has now gone viral. I really hope that it plays because it's funny as fuck.
Presidente, el señor Donaldo J. Trumpo, your ex-presidente, el señor Maduro, is no longer your presidente. He kept talking shit, you know, and fucking around, though, and he ultimately found out, though. Anyway, we're going to make Venezuela grande again. Mucho grande. El bigger y el better than ever before. We're going to drill, baby, drill. We're going to have a big, beautiful fiesta, all the tacos you want. Mucho mariachi, sexy mamacitas, and delicious margaritas. And President Trumpo is going to be el DJ, okay? Muchas gracias, muchachos. Y let's make el Venezuela grande again. Arriba el Venezuela, amigos.
It's a parody, but it might as well be what the fuck Donald Trump said yesterday in the press conference, right? Like, we're just going to run the joint. Like, we got it. Mucho grande. Venezuela, grande, big again. You know, we got it. We're just going to turn the spigot of oil back on. And, you know, their infrastructure is rusty. So we got it. Like, we're just going to go in and turn the faucet and oil is going to rake down. And like, oh, yeah, you know, Russia and China that both have vested interest in Venezuela, like literal money on the ground. Oh, well, they're just going to have to get their oil from the United States now. I know how much Putin and Xi Jinping are going to feel about that. They're going to say, oh, yeah, Donald, yeah, sure. We'll take money from you. We'll take oil from you and we'll pay you whatever it is that you want. Does that seem like something two dictator mobsters are going to do? Or does it seem like possibly Donald Trump is setting in motion China and Russia to fucking team up to take down the United States and then they can divide up the world amongst themselves? Just an idea. Putin already took down America by disinformation and flooding it into our country in 2016 and essentially using Donald Trump for his proxy war against the United States. So do we really think that China and Russia, that has been propping up various Latin American countries, as well as funneling money into resource-rich African nations, are just going to sit by while Donald Trump does whatever the fuck he wants? I don't think so. Okay? And anybody else who thinks so is dumb. And anyone who thinks that this move in Venezuela is going to be the last move that Donald Trump makes, when he has now just spitting off, folks, at the mouth. He has attacked Mexico, Cuba, Colombia, Iran, Venezuela again, if they don't do what he says, and Greenland, who, by the way, is a member of NATO. And so I just want to play, this clip for you. This is from Al Jazeera America, reporting from Soraya Lenny. And she breaks down very clearly what the rest of the world is thinking and feeling right now. And it's, not great.
Other nations have reason to be worried. Let's take a look. First, listen to what President Trump has said about Colombia's president, Gustavo Petro.
Colombia is very sick too, run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States. He's not going to be doing it very well.
So there will be an operation by the U.S.
It sounds good to me. Yeah. You know why? Because they kill a lot of people.
Then there's Mexico.
By the way, you have to do something with Mexico. Mexico has to get their act together because they're pouring through Mexico, and we're going to have to do something.
But there are big differences between Venezuela and Colombia and Mexico in terms of political stability, democratic rule, and politics. And as such, many analysts conclude it's highly unlikely the US would or could attempt a military coup in either country. But what about Cuba? The US has punished the tiny island nation for 6 decades because of the Cuban Revolution through economic sanctions and travel restrictions. Havana is also a US designated state sponsor of terrorism. Here's what US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said.
Yeah, look, if I lived in Havana and I was in the government, I'd be concerned, at least a little bit.
You see, Rubio is the son of Cuban immigrants and has admitted that for him, it's personal. He's a vocal opponent of Latin America's leftist leaders and is credited with crafting Trump's hardline approach.
Is the Cuban government the Trump administration's next target, Mr. Secretary?
Well, the Cuban government is a huge problem. Yeah, the Cuban government is a huge problem. First
So
of all,
is that a yes?
Cuba, but I don't think people fully appreciate. I think they're in a lot of trouble. Yes, I'm not going to talk to you about what our future steps are going to be and our policies are going to be right now.
It's not just Latin America. There's one other country that's been in the US's crosshairs for decades: Iran. The US and Israel bombed Iran in June. Could the US use strikes to trigger the collapse of the Islamic Republic? Well, right now, it doesn't seem so far-fetched.
There's been protesters killed in Iran. You said we were locked and loaded, ready to go. What is the line there for when the U.S. is going to get involved in those protests?
We'll take a look. We're watching it very closely. If they start killing people like they have in the past, I think they're going to get hit very hard by the United States.
All this from a president who promised to end American wars.
All this from a president that promised to end American wars and wanted the Nobel Peace Prize for doing so. He is now talking about putting boots on the ground, which, by the way, he said a number of times yesterday that he has no problems putting boots on the ground, which should signal, right, to American military families, he has no qualms about killing your sons and daughters. Because after all, Pete Hegseth said they're warriors, right? Warriors. We're just warriors. We're locked and loaded. They're cosplaying this fucking G.I. Joe game because their lives are not going to be the ones that are at risk. 80 people already died because of their actions in Venezuela, and that is not including the boat strikes. So as he is now going around and saying that he's going to take Greenland, he's going to gobble up Cuba, he's going to go after Colombia and Mexico. Do you hear any of the other nations saying, not on my watch, not at this time? Greenland is saying it, but let's be very clear, folks. The United States has the largest military in the world, right? The most sophisticated military in the world. And Donald Trump is the commander-in-chief of it. So do you think that it's likely that the actions that he is doing right now are going to create a new axis with America alone as the axis of evil and everyone else needing to team up? You know, the enemy of the friend of my, or the enemy of my friend is my friend. I forget the saying. right? Like, this is what is going to happen. I feel it in my bones that you are going to have Russia and China team up with other nations that they would largely be fighting against in order to take down who they see as their common enemy, which is the United States of America. And again, I say, it was not very hard for Putin to put his work together and decide to take down America vis-a-vis having Trump as president of the United States. He seemed to get that done. And guess what? Didn't have to put a boot or a tank on the ground. There are other ways to take out America. And I do not think that the idiocracy that is running this country understands the game, the escalation that they are doing. But everybody else seems to have a failure of imagination when it comes to what the possibilities are right now at the hands of Donald Trump and these maniacs. And it is endless. As somebody said in the chat, Stephen Miller is the one that is running game here. Stephen Miller had, fever dreams about dropping bombs on Mexico. Well, he got to drop bombs on a Latin American country. He got to do it on what? On Venezuela. Marco Rubio wants to avenge his family, right? And take down Cuba. More than likely, which will collapse because they were being propped up by Venezuela and Russia. But you see, Donald Trump, much as he does everything, will fail, will overreach. And it's just a matter of time before someone, somewhere, decides to clap back and put American lives at risk. That is what Donald Trump is doing right now with his fucking G.I. Joe cosplaying bullshit, right? So where do the American people stand right now? Well, we have our friend Harry Enton, who pulled some numbers to get a sense of, well, what do the American people think right now about
if this
Donald Trump's actions?
To be a positive for Donald Trump, or at least support for this operation. Why? U.S. military ousting Venezuela's president. Beforehand, look at this. 47% opposed, just 21% of Americans favored. The unsure was higher than the favored, 29% versus 21%. And get this, just 39% of Republicans favored it. People are saying, oh, this could be a wag the dog moment. I have to ask, which dog are they wagging the tail of?
Sometimes these numbers change when an operation is seen as successful, but we just don't know. Yeah, we just don't know yet. All right, how interested have people been since this news broke Saturday morning?
Yeah, one of the reasons why I don't think this, wagging of the tail will actually work out is because folks' interest in this story has very much been going adios amigos, goodbye. I mean, just take a look here. Take a look here. Google searches for Nicolás Maduro after peaking this weekend down 70%. Down 70% versus Saturday. There was a peak on Saturday, but John, then the interest went, see you later, goodbye. And more than that, we can look at history, right? We can look at history. Look at another time we went into a foreign country, right? Take a look here. Google searches for Maduro at the peak, 74% lower than when we went into Pakistan and got Osama bin Laden back in May of 2011. And that had a little bit of a boost for Barack Obama, the president back then, but it was very much of a fleeting boost. So the bottom line is, you look at these numbers, there's fleeing interest in the story and way less interest than we had back during a military operation that did provide a boost to Obama, but not really one that was long-lasting.
Interesting to see if that changes over the course of the week with football over, but this really does show that people stop paying attention pretty quickly on Saturday. Yeah. In terms of what happens next, obviously, the United States says it's running Venezuela, but what do the prediction markets say? Who do they think will be running Venezuela?
Yeah, who do we think is going to be leading Venezuela? Look, it's a little bit of a cluster car right here. What are we talking about? Chance of leading Venezuela at the end of 2026. Delcy Rodriguez at 43%, Amundo Gonzalez at 24%, and then you got Machado here at 20%. The bottom line is this. There's still a lot to be determined here. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. That's going to be a political story that we have to develop.
This is the current vice president. This is the person that actually won the last election.
Correct.
The United States says this is the person who was the Nobel Prize winning, opposition leader. Yeah. Just so people know. Harriet, thank you.
So you see what Harry is saying. The American people not in favor of this. This is actually a political anvil for Donald Trump, much in the same way that, remember, tariffs were supposed to be Liberation Day. And what have they done? Oh, I don't know. They have absolutely fucked with our economy, small businesses, farms have gone bankrupt, et cetera, et cetera. And again, So you see the breakdown by CNN's Harry Enton on who would be running Venezuela. And just to be very clear, because Aaron Parnaz broke it down this morning, 2 people close to the White House said the president's lack of interest in boosting Machado, despite her recent efforts to flatter Trump, stemmed from her decision to accept the Nobel Peace Prize, an award the president has openly coveted. Although Machado ultimately said she was dedicating the award to Trump, her acceptance of the prize was an ultimate sin, said one of the people. If she had turned it down and said, I can't accept it because it's Donald Trump's, she'd be the president of Venezuela today. That is what somebody in the Trump administration said, which is fucking bananas. Okay? Bananas. But what else is nuts? Oh, well, the Prime Minister of Denmark having to step up and publicly deter Donald Trump from threatening to annex Greenland. I want you to take a listen to what she had to say.
Threats, pressure, and condescending remarks, even from our closest allies for a generation, about wanting to take over another country and another people as if it was something you could buy and own. That has no place anywhere. We shoulder our responsibility in the world, and it is not us who will seek out conflict. But let there be no doubt, no matter what happens, we will stand firm on what is right and what.
And again, he starts in Venezuela, goes to Cuba, goes to Colombia, goes to Iran, goes to Greenland. What's to stop him? Somebody said that Donald Trump is like a rabid dog right now who just tasted blood for the first time and can't get enough of it. Someone, somewhere, is going to have to stop this man. And I've said it before. I truly believe it is going to be the American people. It is going to be a national strike. It is going to be us saying we have had enough and shutting this fucking country down. Because guess what? You know who's in need of a regime change? America. America is in need of a regime change. And if we think that this motherfucker is going to hang around until midterms, and you're thinking, oh yeah, midterms, we got that on lock, you are not paying attention to what is happening around the world right now. Donald Trump isn't going anywhere. And whether it is going to war in multiple places so that he can do what he said in the Oval Office last year that he was willing to do when he was speaking, right, with Zelensky, what did he say? Oh, you haven't had elections in 2-3 years now because of the war? Zelensky said, yes, we had to, pause elections. It's not safe for people to be able to vote. And he said, maybe we should try that here in the United States. To what? A gaggle of reporters who could be heard laughing as if he told a joke and didn't tell you the fucking plot. Before I wrap up today, there is just, again, all of this could have been avoided if small, spineless, toxic, fragile men would just go to fucking therapy and work their shit out there instead of on the rest of us. So Pete Hegseth has decided to once again attack Senator Mark Kelly, one of the most decorated former military leaders that has ever been inside of the Senate. And he has decided, because of this video, if you remember, the former military veterans that stood up in a video and told their fellow combatants not to follow illegal orders, which, by the way, they did, because that's how Maduro is in the United States, because the actions taken in Venezuela were illegal. Okay? So he puts out this video along with his colleagues in the House of Representatives and in the Senate. It drove the fucking White House crazy that they would have the audacity to do this. So now Pete Hegseth has come out and he is going to lessen Mark Kelly's title, and he's going to lessen his retirement pay because he's petty and he's small. And it looks to me like Mark Kelly can probably do a pull-up. So this was Mark Kelly's response. Over 25 years in the U.S. Navy, 39 combat missions, and 4 missions to space, I risked my life for this country and to defend our Constitution, including the First Amendment rights of every American to speak out. I never expected that the President of the United States and the Secretary of Defense would attack me for doing exactly that. My rank and retirement are things that I earned through my service and sacrifice for this country. I got shot at. I missed holidays and birthdays. I commanded a space shuttle mission while my wife Gabby recovered from a gunshot wound to the head, all while proudly wearing the American flag on my shoulder. Generations of service members have made these same patriotic sacrifices for this country, earning the respect, appreciation, and rank they deserve. Pete Hegseth wants to send the message to every single retired service member that if they say something he or Donald Trump doesn't like, they will come after them the same way. It's outrageous and it is wrong. There is nothing more un-American than that. If Pete Hegseth, the most unqualified Secretary of Defense in our country's history, thinks he can intimidate me with a censure or threats to demote me or prosecute me, he still doesn't get it. I will fight this with everything I've got, not for myself, but to send a message back to Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump. They don't get to decide what Americans in this country get to say about their government. It is obvious to me, as many others, that Senator Mark Kelly is angling for a shot at the presidency in 2028. Now, I will say this again. While folks are looking at midterms in a few months and they're looking at ahead to 2028, we got a real life dictator in the United States right the fuck now, who is ushering a new era of imperialism, who is about to colonize the world again by force. Right? It is as if the colonizer blood inside of him has just been bubbling and steaming over. It's like it's not enough for domestic white nationalism. No, you got to dominate the world, right? You got to dominate the Western Hemisphere and keep going. The fact is, we're not going to have midterms. We're not going to have a presidential election. So what I need for folks like Mark Kelly to do is take their tough talk and actually do something about it. Actually start calling on the people of these United States to stand up against this fucking fraudulent, ignorant, dangerous, malignant government. Right? Start in collection, in chorus, getting the people of this country to stand up for themselves, because Congress is inept. The Supreme Court is bought. We are all we got. We are all we got. And so I don't know, folks, but I can say 5 days into this new year, Jesus Christ, somebody take the wheel, okay? Because this train is off the fucking rails, has jumped the shark, and I don't know if it ain't ever coming back. But I do know that there are people in this country that are conscious, that are waking up day in and day out. And it is time for them to realize that there is no savior on a white horse that is coming to get you, right? We're all we got. That is it for me today, dear friends. On the Danielle Moodie Show, it looks as if we only had one hiccup today for this live. So I am going to be going live this week at 2 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Eastern. Make sure that you keep your eyes out for other videos and postings that I'm doing, as well as following me on Substack at The Damn Digest, where I am posting content, and where Waj and I were live today at 12 p.m. Eastern. That video will be coming to YouTube later when I have the ability to post. But before I get out of here, I just want to once again give my greatest thanks to our fantastic moderator, Susan, who has been holding it down in the chat. She held it down for all of last year, and it is why this channel has finally grown beyond 1,000 subscribers. And so I just want to say a hearty thank you and Happy New Year to our moderator, Susan. And shout out to all the super stickers and super thanks that came in. Every single dollar helps, friends. All of my content is free. I am people powered. And it is because of you I get to do the work that I believe that I've been called to do. So MK, thank you so much for the $1.99. Ernst, as always, thank you for the $5. Susan, thank you for gifting a membership to the Danielle Moodie channel and for the $10. Thank you, Gato Mania, for $4.99 and for becoming a new member. Thank you so much. Again, memberships are open. All of my content is free, but if you're looking for an opportunity to support me on a monthly basis, you can become a paid member of the channel. Mr. Willis, thank you for the $5. Grizz, thank you for $1.11. Appreciate you. Thank you for the $1.99. Susan, again, $10. E. Schwartz, as always, $5. Appreciate you. And Jimmy, appreciate you so very much. Folks, I will be back tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Eastern. As always, power to the people and to all the people power. Get woke, stay sane. And in these extraordinarily dangerous times, dear friends, do stay safe, be well, take care of yourselves and each other.